The evening felt like every other, routine, quiet, and strangely heavy. I sat in my room thinking about how distant everything had become between me and the person I was committed to. Our conversations had shrunk into short replies, our days passed without warmth, and the silence had begun to feel louder than any argument could. I didn't know what to do with the restlessness inside me, so I tried to distract myself, pretending everything was fine. That was when my phone buzzed. It was my friend, the one who had always understood me in ways few people ever managed. He simply wrote, "Come to my room tonight. I need to talk to you." No explanation, no details, just those words, and yet something about them made my heart shift a little. I stared at the message for a while, wondering why he would call me at this hour. He wasn't the type to ask for help unless something serious was going on, and he never phrased anything this vaguely. I felt a familiar warmth spread through me, the same feeling I always got when he appeared unexpectedly in my day. I told myself not to overthink it, friends ask for company all the time. But still, I couldn't shake the sensation that this night would matter in some way. Walking down the hallway toward his room, I felt my heartbeat quicken for reasons I didn't want to admit. The corridor was dim, lit only by a soft yellow glow, and each step felt like I was moving towards something I couldn't see clearly. When I reached his door, it was already slightly open, as if he had been waiting. I hesitated, then gently pushed it wider. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and calming. A small lamp glowed in the corner, casting soft shadows on the walls. There was music playing quietly, something slow, something emotional, something he usually listened to only when he was thinking too much. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, completely lost in his thoughts. When he heard me enter, he lifted his head and offered a small, tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm glad you came," he said softly. The way he said it made something in my chest tighten. I sat beside him, close enough to feel the heat from his body but far enough to keep a safe, invisible line between us. I wasn't sure why I felt the need to draw that line, maybe because part of me already knew how fragile everything felt. We started talking about small things at first, work, stress, the usual distractions, but it was clear he wasn't interested in any of that. His voice kept drifting, his thoughts somewhere else. After a moment of silence, he finally sighed and looked at me again, his eyes darker than usual, full of something he didn't know how to say. He asked me how things were at home, and I didn't have the energy to lie. I told him the truth, that things felt cold, distant, almost unreachable. He listened the way he always did, without interrupting, without judging, just absorbing every word like it mattered. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe I had gotten too used to the way he listened, the way he noticed details no one else bothered to see. As the conversation deepened, he moved just slightly closer, not enough to be obvious, but enough to feel it. His shoulder brushed mine, and even though it was the lightest contact, it sent an unexpected warmth through me. I didn't move away, and he didn't either. It felt natural, almost familiar, and yet there was an unspoken tension in the air, something heavy, something new. I found myself thinking about how long it had been since anyone made me feel seen like this. How long it had been since I felt someone's presence fill the silence instead of making it worse. He didn't say anything dramatic or emotional, just listened, nodded, and asked questions that showed he cared. And somehow, that felt more intimate than anything else could. He took a slow breath, as if he was gathering courage. The room felt smaller, warmer, quieter. Then he turned a little toward me and said in a low, trembling voice, "There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time." My heart stopped for a moment, and the night suddenly felt heavier, like everything that happened after this moment would change something. I didn't know what he was about to say, but I could see in his eyes that it wasn't something small. I swallowed, nodded gently, and waited. He looked away for a moment, then back at me. His expression was serious, vulnerable, almost afraid. And as I sat there, inches away from him, I felt the quiet pull of something I wasn't ready to name, something that felt dangerously close to crossing a line I had been pretending didn't exist. He stayed quiet for a long moment after saying there was something he had wanted to tell me, as if the words were trapped somewhere between fear and honesty. The soft light in the room flickered slightly, and I could hear his breathing, slow and uneven. It was strange how clearly I could feel the weight of the moment, how aware I became of every small movement, every sound, every inch of space between us. I waited, trying not to push him, but also unable to pretend I wasn't curious, or affected. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked just a little. He told me he had been carrying feelings he didn't plan to confess. He said he tried to bury them, hide them, forget them, but they kept resurfacing every time we talked, laughed, or even sat together in silence. He admitted he had fallen for me long before he even realized what it meant. Hearing him say that made my heart drop and rise at the same time. I looked at him, trying to understand if he was serious, if he truly meant every word. But his eyes looked raw, too honest to be anything else. I didn't speak right away. Instead, I felt this rush of memories flooding back, moments when he stayed up all night to comfort me, times he protected me when I didn't know I needed protection, the way he always understood my moods without me explaining anything. I realized how often my thoughts drifted toward him even when they shouldn't. How many times I found myself comparing the warmth of his presence with the cold distance of my relationship at home. He misread my silence and immediately apologized, saying he didn't want to ruin our friendship. He didn't want to make things complicated or put me in a difficult position. He just couldn't keep pretending anymore. His hands were trembling slightly, and when he tried to pull away, I instinctively reached out and touched his hand, not tightly, just enough to stop him. The moment our hands touched, he froze, and so did I. There was nothing inappropriate in the gesture, just a simple connection, but it felt more powerful than anything else had felt in weeks. I told him I wasn't angry, that I wasn't upset, that I just needed a moment to process. He nodded, but his eyes softened in a way that told me the small touch had meant something to him too. We talked, really talked, in a way I hadn't done with anyone in a long time. He asked me if I was happy, and I didn't know how to answer. Happiness felt like something I had been pretending to have. I admitted that I felt lonely even when I wasn't alone. That I felt unseen in a relationship where I should have felt secure. That I didn't even remember the last time my partner and I had shared a real conversation. As the words spilled out, he listened with a patience that made something inside me ache. He wasn't trying to convince me of anything. He wasn't pushing me toward him. He wasn't asking me to choose. He was simply present, offering a safety I didn't realize I was craving. And in that quiet space, where only soft music and shared breaths filled the room, I felt a connection that had been building silently for far too long. He shifted closer, not enough to invade my space, but enough to let me know he was there if I needed him. Our shoulders touched again, gently, naturally, without force. This time I didn't pull away. Neither did he. The closeness wasn't physical, it was emotional, heavy, real. He looked at me, his eyes full of questions he didn't ask out loud. I could tell he wanted to understand what I felt, what I was thinking, whether the emotional walls between us were falling or still standing. I didn't know how to give him a clear answer. I only knew that the silence between us had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was thick with unspoken feelings, with years of suppressed affection, with the possibility of something neither of us expected to face. I finally whispered that I didn't know what any of this meant yet, but I couldn't pretend the connection between us didn't exist. His expression softened, hopeful, confused, and relieved all at once. He nodded, accepting the uncertainty with the same quiet patience he had shown all night. We sat there, side by side, hands still touching lightly, breathing in the same slow rhythm. No promises, no decisions, no steps taken, just two people acknowledging a truth they had both been avoiding. Outside, the night stretched on quietly, wrapping around the room like a secret, while inside, everything felt like it had just begun shifting in a way neither of us could undo. The silence between us settled softly after everything we had shared, but it wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It felt like a moment we both needed, time to breathe, to understand the weight of what had just passed between us. I could feel the warmth of his hand still resting near mine, not gripping, not insisting, just quietly offering presence. The room felt smaller than before, as if the world outside no longer mattered. His confession hung in the air, and my response, uncertain but honest, seemed to bind us in a fragile, emotional truth neither of us had planned to confront tonight. He finally broke the silence, speaking softly, telling me he didn't expect anything from me. He said he didn't want to be the reason I made a mistake or hurt anyone. He only wanted me to know how he felt, because hiding it had become too heavy for him. The sincerity in his voice made my chest tighten. It was rare to have someone open themselves this fully without expecting something in return. I realized how long it had been since anyone had spoken to me with such honesty. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment everything felt painfully clear. I had been drifting emotionally for longer than I wanted to admit, drifting away from a relationship that no longer held me, drifting towards someone who saw me more deeply than I saw myself. I felt guilty, conflicted, but also strangely relieved. It was the first time in months that my emotions lined up with truth instead of pretending. He asked me what I wanted, not what I thought I should do, not what others would expect, just what my heart genuinely wanted. I didn't answer right away. I closed my eyes and felt every moment of the past months rush through me, the silence at home, the emotional distance, the growing loneliness, and the quiet comfort I always found with him. Some part of me had already known the truth. Tonight only forced me to stop hiding it. When I finally spoke, my voice felt steadier than I expected. I told him I needed to be honest with myself before anything else. I needed to stop living between two halves of a life, one that looked stable from the outside, and one that felt emotionally real but hidden in shadows. He listened quietly, nodding, not rushing me, giving me space to unravel the thoughts I had avoided for too long. I told him I didn't want to break anyone with a lie, not my partner, not him, not myself. If there was going to be a choice, it had to be made with clarity, not in the heat of emotion. I wasn't choosing him tonight, and I wasn't going back home pretending nothing had changed either. What I wanted, maybe for the first time, was space to understand who I really was and what I truly needed. He accepted that without hesitation. He told me he respected my honesty more than anything. His expression softened in a way that made the room feel even warmer, and I could see relief in his eyes, not because I chose him, but because I chose truth. That meant something to him. And to me. We stayed there until the first hint of dawn crept through the window, turning the room a pale shade of blue. The night had changed us, quietly, deeply, without drama or loud declarations. When I finally stood to leave, he didn't try to stop me. He simply walked me to the door, his voice soft when he said, "Whatever happens next, I'm here. Not to pressure you, just to support you." I nodded, feeling the truth of that settle into me. The hallway outside felt cool compared to the warmth of his room. As I walked back toward my own space, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, clarity. Not about the future, but about myself. I knew the decisions waiting for me wouldn't be easy, but they would be honest. When I reached my room, I sat quietly in the stillness, realizing that something had shifted permanently. The night had brought me face to face with a truth I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't just about infidelity or loyalty, it was about finally choosing the life that aligned with my heart. And for the first time, I felt ready to face whatever came next, no matter how difficult. If you felt connected to this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more dramatic love stories, and comment your thoughts. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful narratives to life.